Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm Aubrey Reeves, CEO of Business and Arts. Before we begin, I'd first like to take a moment to acknowledge that while Business and Arts is a national organization with staff in several territories, I have the honor to be a guest on the traditional lands and waters of the Petun and Wendat peoples, the Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee Confederacies, and most recently the Mississaugas of the Credit River, as well as many other Indigenous nations, some of whose names are no longer remembered. We are grateful to have the opportunity to work, to live, and to meet on these lands. A big thank you to the speaker series presenting partner, Power Corporation of Canada, whose support enables us to bring these discussions to you. Thank you also to the supporting partner, RBC. On to a few housekeeping items. We're happy to have Jenny Stevens with us for ASL interpretation in today's session. To enable ASL, please click on the interpretation icon in the Zoom toolbar and select ASL. A new window will open with our interpreter. Auto-generated English and French captions can also be turned on in the control panel. Only the presenters and moderators will have our microphones on today, so please submit your questions in the Q&A box. The session is scheduled for 1 hour. It is also being recorded and will be distributed in a few days, along with Destination Canada's presentation and any other resources that get mentioned. We're very excited to have this conversation today. So there's been a lot of interest recently about strengthening the relationship between the tourism sector and the arts and culture sector, both at the municipal, provincial, and federal levels. Done right, there can be a lot of mutual benefits for all parties involved, which brings me to introduce our first presenter. Johanna Griggs is the Executive Director, Tourism Development at Destination Canada. She's a seasoned economic development and tourism professional with a focus on supporting public sector organizations. Johanna has built a career working in partnerships with businesses, community organizations, governments, tourism sector organizations, and developers to revitalize economies and attract investment. She's a proven track record for securing investment and engaging stakeholders in meaningful ways while providing strategic advice to senior officials at all levels of government. So welcome to Johanna. There you are.
Thank you very much for that kind introduction, Aubrey, and good afternoon and good morning to those across the country. Just take a minute to share my screen here. Wonderful. I'm thrilled to be here today to discuss how arts and culture organizations can actively leverage tourism to fuel their creative missions through regenerative stewardship. It's about elevating your existing work to a powerful economic driver by harnessing the global traveler's demand for authenticity to create sustainable, long-term revenue for our creative community. To start, it's helpful to think about tourism not as a single sector, but as an ecosystem. No one organization delivers tourism on its own. It's shaped by many players: transportation, accommodation, food, nature, and most importantly, culture. Arts and culture organizations are not on the edges of this system. They're at its core. You help define what a place is and what it feels like to experience it. Tourism is big business in Canada. In 2024, it delivered $130 billion to our economy. That's $350 million a day. It continues to support 1 in 10 jobs across the country and is Canada's second largest service export, which drives critical new money into our economy. But what's important is why people travel. They don't travel for the infrastructure. They travel for experiences. And many of those experiences are cultural. This means that arts organizations are not just participants in tourism, they're drivers of demand. Beyond the sheer economic impact of tourism, it's one of few sectors that delivers great economic and social benefits to all regions of Canada: urban, rural, and remote. Tourism's active in over 5,000 communities across the country, and in many of those places, arts and culture are the key anchors. That puts you in a unique position, not just to benefit from tourism, but to shape how it supports your communities. Tourism, when well done, contributes to things we all care about: quality of life, local pride, economic opportunity, cultural vibrancy. They also are core outcomes of the arts. And this is where the connection becomes really powerful, because regenerative tourism is really about aligning tourism with those same goals. We saw that tourism generated $130 billion worth of revenue in 2024, driven primarily through domestic revenue, but international visitors contributed over $131 billion of new money into Canada's economy. So when arts organizations are part of the system, it opens the door to new audiences and new revenue sources beyond local and traditional funding sources. In Canada, 17% of the businesses in tourism are arts and culture related. That's over 44,000 businesses, not to mention other types of arts organizations and non-for-profits. In reality, culture plays an even bigger role. It's often the reason people choose one destination over another. And that positions arts organizations as something more than contributors. So you're central to the visitor experience. Around the world, and here in Canada, there's a growing call for tourism that prioritizes communities and the environment, often referred to as a regenerative approach. We recognize that past models of tourism have often been too extractive, impacting quality of life, ecosystems, local culture, in the pursuit of scale and efficiency. This shift is being driven by communities, travelers, and the industry itself. At its core, regenerative tourism is simple. It means leaving a place better than when you found it. It's about a visitor economy that creates net positive benefits, socially, culturally, environmentally, and economically, while deepening our connection to land and community. Today, this approach is no longer optional. It's essential to staying competitive in a global marketplace. It builds resilience, supports community well-being, and attracts highly engaged, value-driven travelers seeking meaningful experiences. And the shift really begins with mindset. We move from seeing tourism as a transaction to seeing it as a relationship between visitors, hosts, and place. We measure success not just in economic terms, but in quality of life, balancing prosperity with cultural vitality, social well-being, and environmental health. This has led to a more place-based regenerative approach, one that brings in new partners and new ways of thinking. It marks a shift from simply marketing destinations to actively stewarding them. And in that work, arts and culture organizations are essential. They shape how a place is understood and experienced, acting as cultural anchors that reflect identity, tell stories, and connect both residents and visitors with what makes a community special. There are 5 key principles to regenerative tourism. For arts organizations, this starts with something you already do very well: understanding place. Your work reflects local identity, stories, and lived experiences. And that's exactly what visitors are interested in seeking and increasingly seeking out. Regenerative tourism asks us to think in terms of systems, to see destinations as living ecosystems where everything is connected. Arts organizations are one part of that system, but deeply connected to others. And at the heart of this approach are relationships between organizations, communities, businesses, and visitors. For your organizations, this can mean building stronger connections with tourism partners, local businesses, and community groups. Each part of the system contributes something unique. Your contribution is creativity, storytelling, and meaning. These are not just nice to haves. They're exactly what today's travelers are looking for. And this brings us back to stewardship. This is the shift from asking, how do we attract more visitors, to asking, how do we ensure tourism benefits our community? Arts organizations play a critical role here. You help ensure that culture is shared in ways that are authentic, respectful, and community-led. If you want to learn more about Destination Canada's approach to regenerative tourism, you can scan the QR code here, and I believe the link will also be shared in the chat. And wanted to focus also on how we're measuring success with this new approach, shifting from revenue and visitor numbers to a more holistic assessment of how tourism contributes to the wealth and well-being of a destination. So in 2022, Destination Canada introduced the Wealth and Wellbeing Index, which captures 6 new indicators. They measure our performance as stewards in chief of Canada's visitor economy and provide regional insights to partners across the ecosystem. The index is our new national benchmarking tool. It tracks our progress against economic strength, sociocultural vitality, and environmental health, grounded in quality life for Canadians. It helps the sector become more competitive, resilient, and regenerative. We remain committed to a vibrant and profitable tourism sector and to learning with and from our global partners as we lead this shift. And while the overall impact of tourism is important, we know that distilled data is key to supporting informed decisions. For years, our data was fragmented across various sources. The Tourism Data Collective was created to change that, to bring together the data, research, and insights that our industry needs to make smarter, faster decisions. We didn't just build a database, we built a national central brain. It's powered by 230 data sources, 230 data sources, and over 34 billion rows of trusted information. It uses AI and analytics to turn that information into meaningful insights and covers everything from visitor arrivals to spending to accommodation performance and local travel trends. Really, the intent was to break down silos and make this high-quality, trusted data available to everyone. And for today's purposes, I'm going to focus on our traveler segmentation and intelligence. Because I'm not a data person, I've engaged a video and I'll share that with you right now.
Introducing the Traveler Segmentation Program from Destination Canada, a tool that makes it easier than ever to define and target the best guests from priority markets. Powered by AI, the Traveler Segmentation Program highlights 7 unique traveler segments, representing the diverse people who travel to Canada and what motivates them to pack their bags and spend their money. Understanding these motivations helps you capture your audience's attention and inspire them to choose your destination. With everyone in the tourism industry using this program, Canada will become even more competitive globally. At the heart of the program are our best customers, the highly engaged guests. Outdoor explorers pursue adventure in nature. Culture seekers thrive on connections with new people, history, and art. Refined globetrotters prioritize high-value experiences and discovering new places. Purpose-driven families focus on meaningful, educational moments together. These segments allow us to target guests who value responsible travel and bring greater economic benefits to Canada. This approach supports sustainable growth and year-round visitation across the country, driving wealth and well-being for all of Canada. To help you reach your customers, the Traveler Segmentation Program offers a range of tools, from training programs to an interactive quiz that helps you find your best segment match. With in-depth data and insights, you can pinpoint your target audience, understand when to launch campaigns, craft creative that inspires action, and refine the tourism experiences you offer, enabling you to drive measurable results. Find the Traveler Segmentation Program, available now on the Canadian Tourism Data Collective.
I'm happy to share that we've also integrated the Digital Traveler Twin, which is an AI-generated integration into our consumer segmentation program that allows you to have real-life, plain language conversations with the information. So I'm going to provide a little bit of an overview of some of the information we have on consumers. Culture seekers, we'll start here. They're actively traveling for experiences like yours. They plan ahead, build trips around arts and culture, and are ready to spend, not just on tickets, but across multiple experiences. For example, events like Luminato Festival in Toronto and Folk on the Rocks in Yellowknife draw visitors specifically because of their cultural programming. And those visitors often engage with multiple local businesses while they're there. For arts organizations, the opportunity is to better capture that demand. Make your programming visible during trip planning. Partner locally to create bundled experiences and encourage visitors to stay longer and do more. The key point is that these visitors are already looking for you. The opportunity is to convert that interest into deeper engagement and revenue. Refined globetrotters are your high-value audience, visitors who are willing to pay more for depth, access, and meaning. They're looking for curated, immersive experiences. For organizations in the arts, this is an opportunity to offer premium experiences like artist talks and private tours, introduce tiered pricing, partner with tour operators or travel planners. And this is how you can move from focusing on volume to increasing revenue per visitor in a way that's often more aligned with regenerative, lower impact tourism. Lastly, our purpose-driven families are a group that is motivated by impact. They want to know their visit is benefiting the community. Canadian Indigenous experiences like those offered by the Haida Heritage Centre in Haida Gwaii are strong examples where visitors engage with culture in ways that directly support community, language, and knowledge sharing. For arts organizations, the opportunity is make your impact visible. Show how you support artists and community. Offer ways for visitors to contribute through donations, membership, ethical retail. These visitors are often willing to spend more because they want to see their spend not as a contribution, not just as a transaction. Across all of these segments, the takeaway is simple. Visitors are looking for authentic, meaningful cultural experiences. That's exactly what arts organizations already provide. The opportunity is to connect that value more intentionally to the visitor journey, and in doing so, strengthen both your revenue and your community impact. I invite you to explore the tools we have in more detail and leverage them to drive more engagement and revenue. There are also tools and resources emerging to support broader destination development work. They're designed to help organizations and community develop experiences, build partnerships, and take a more regenerative, place-based approach. We've created 2 new toolkits in partnership with the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, or FCM, to provide foundational knowledge and resources needed to better leverage the travel and tourism economy in communities. Both are available in French and English and can be downloaded on our website or through the QR code here. As we wrap up, I want to come back to a simple idea. Tourism is changing. Success is no longer measured by just how many people visit, but how those visits contribute to communities, culture, and place. And that's where arts and culture organizations play a critical role. You're not on the periphery of tourism, you're at the heart of it. You shape how places experienced, how its stories are told, and how visitors connect in meaningful ways. The opportunity ahead is not to do more, but to be more intentional with how you work and how you connect to the visitor journey. That means making experiences visible to visitors, designing opportunities for deeper engagement, and ensuring that benefits of tourism flow back into your communities. Because when well done, this isn't just about attracting visitors. It's about strengthening the places we live, create, and share. So I'll leave you with this question. What role do you want your organization to play in shaping how your community is experienced and how it thrives? Thank you.
Thank you, Johanna. That was really enlightening to see how Destination Canada is promoting a more sustainable tourism sector. And I think it's really helpful to learn about the shift in mindset. And I'm also curious to dive into the data and the Tourism Data Collective. It's also really encouraging to see the many ways that our 2 sectors are really aligned and overlap. So with that, we're going to dig into some specific examples, and I'd like to introduce our panelists, Valerie and Melissa. So Valerie Shantz is the Executive Director of the Winnipeg Folk Festival, which is a charitable organization that presents a 4-day outdoor festival each July, as well as concerts throughout the year and community programs. The festival celebrated its 50th edition in 2025 with record-breaking attendance of 79,000 people. And this year's Winnipeg Folk Festival is July 9th to 12th in Birds Hill Provincial Park. Valerie started her career in theater, later became the founding executive director of Film Training Manitoba, a training arm of the local film industry, and she has since worked in arts funding, government and higher education, and serves on the board of the Winnipeg Art Gallery, Manitoba Theatre for Young People, and the Winnipeg Arts Council before joining the Folk Festival in 2024. And Melissa Novecosky is an arts administrator with over 15 years of experience in arts and culture leadership. She joined the Shaw Festival's executive team in 2024 and oversees the general management of all areas at the Shaw Festival. Prior to joining the Shaw, Melissa oversaw the fundraising goals and managed a successful team at the Royal Manitoba Theatre Centre. She began her theatre career as an equity stage manager, working at theatres across the country before transitioning into administration and teaching stage management at the University of Winnipeg. Melissa is a proven fundraiser and also a trusted educator and mentor in the arts community. She's committed to 2SLGBTQ plus advocacy and creating a thriving theater environment through collaboration and inclusive practices. So welcome both Valerie and Melissa.
Hello.
Hello. Okay, so we're going to dive into our discussion now. So the Shaw Festival in Niagara-on-the-Lake and Winnipeg Folk Festival in Winnipeg, obviously, draws visitors from across Canada and internationally. How do you move visitors from simply attending a single performance to feeling a meaningful connection to your communities? And what transforms that first-time visitor into someone who feels a sense of belonging? Maybe Valerie, you want to jump in first?
Sure. You know, when you attend the Winnipeg Folk Festival, you're attending much more than a music event. It's a full body experience. You may be choosing to camp at one of our campsites. You might be just coming out for a day, but it's very rare that somebody comes to the festival for only a couple of hours. And so when you enter our site, you're entering a whole community experience. And people consistently tell us that, yes, they love the music, but the reason they keep coming back is the sense of community that they have. And some of the rituals that are part of their attendance at the festival that we try and enable the creation of all sorts of new rituals. So that's one of the ways that I think that we're able to get people to keep coming back.
Lovely. And Melissa?
Thank you. So the Shaw Festival is a repertory theater company in Niagara-on-the-Lake, and we do between 10 and 14 productions in 3 venues. So we are one of the few remaining repertory theater companies. And so in that way, we are a destination theater. So when patrons are coming to visit us, much like Valerie described in the Winnipeg Folk Festival, which is one of my favorite things. I used to live in Winnipeg and I used to go to the Folk Festival all the time. When people are coming to Shaw, they are coming for multi-day stays. They are coming on their arts vacation. Canadians see an average of 6 tickets purchased when they come to the Shaw, and for Americans, it's about 10 tickets during their time at the Shaw Festival. So I have watched people come to this festival on like an opening weekend or something like that, and witness them actually fall in love with this place. They're in the process of binging live theater over the course of 3 or 4 days, and they are absolutely loving it. And my favorite thing is watching people meet each other in line on their way into the next show that they're seeing, or see each other in town, or end up going for dinner with someone they didn't know, or see someone they hadn't seen in a long time. There's this connection point that happens when people come to Shaw and they're experiencing that festival perspective. What I love is hearing the stories about people who are creating like lasting friendships with people that they meet in some of our multi-day programming. It's really quite extraordinary, and it's exciting. And part of what builds that is not only the joy of live performance that they're seeing at Shaw, but also all of the engagement activities that we have beyond our regular theater programming. So, you know, we do pre-show conversations, post-show conversations, we have concerts, we have pop-up patios, we have education events for seniors and for students. We have a pre-show workshop for our family shows that engage with young kids and their parents. And last year, the one before The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, we did it at the courthouse, which is down the street from the festival theater where the show was. And so the kids would go and they would make these animal masks, and they would talk about Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe and prepare themselves to go, into battle. And then they would walk down the street to the theater with a bunch of musical instruments and their masks on, just like making a terrible ruckus. But it was also enlivening and engaging and joyful. And that energy came into the show and just made it such a thrill for those kids. You go into the lobby and see them all in their masks. And it's that kind of engagement that allows for sort of deepening connection with people. And that brings them back. We're trying to provide meaningful interaction for people. And there's so many ways that we can do that, and it extends beyond the doors of our theater out into the community.
Mhm. That sounds like very fun kids parade.
Yeah.
Johanna, first, probably a lot of our audience, this might be their first introduction to the concept of regenerative tourism. What would you want their key focus to be if they were introducing this topic to their organization and to their community?
Thank you very much for the question. I'd say start with place, not promotion. The priority should really be on understanding what's unique about your community, the people, the culture, the landscape, as well as what the community aspirations are. Build your tourism sector from there. Regenerative tourism is really about being thoughtful and intentional in developing your destination, not trying to scale quickly. It's really focusing on strengthening local relationships, local capacity, and experience that really reflect the true culture of a place. I'd suggest starting there, and it's also really advisable to connect with other tourism organizations in your local community to understand what kind of initiatives and programs they have already initiated.
As you pointed out in your presentation, it's an ecology. So you need to think in that big picture, but all the other players involved.
Absolutely.
So Melissa and Valerie, many regenerative approaches highlight co-creation. How have your guests, partners, or local stakeholders surprised you by contributing to the vitality of your festival in unexpected ways? Melissa, you already talked about the kids parade, but maybe there's another example.
Yeah, I mean, we've always been a business of community related tourism. So like beyond the local business connections, which are obviously a really important part of a tourist's experience of Niagara on the Lake, I wanted to highlight a couple of things that surprised me when I started here 2 years ago. One of them is the Shaw Guild, which is a volunteer-based organization that supports the festival. There's about 400 people. Most of them are seniors, and many of them are local to the Niagara region. And these folks have created a remarkable community within the community of Shaw, within the community of Niagara on the Lake. So they support the Shaw with fundraising and volunteer hours, and they do everything from greeting people and ticket scanning to gardening. But what they also do is lead a lot of our post-show conversations. They also lead our tour. We have a group of docents that work out of the Guild that do all of our tours. And they do a bunch of work with educational activities. That kid parade, part of it is supported by volunteers from the Guild, along with our education team. And all of that works to broaden the experience for patrons. And more than that, it creates a community of connection for the Guild members and gives them connection and place and the opportunity to create new community. It gets harder as you get older to create community. So this is a great way to do that. And one of the things that came out of the Guild, out of the pandemic, was actually something that's now called the Nodal Ambassadors. And this is a group of folks, there's about 100 of them, and they provide assistance to visitors who come to the town. So they're all around town, and they're helping people answer questions, and they're really enhancing the visitor experience. And that group came from the Guild. It's mostly built from Guild members. It's obviously expanded beyond them now, but that it grew out of that moment in the pandemic when there was nothing for Guild volunteers to do, and they were like, oh well, there were so many more visitors coming, we can support the visitors here. So that was kind of incredible. And then the other thing that I wanted to highlight, if you'll give me leave to do that, is we are growing our engagement activities, and we're really interested in how performing arts can interact with health, education, and social services. So we're working on expanding our programming beyond the live performance to programming that supports positive aging, and trying to reframe how we think about aging, not as a decline, but as the peak of creativity for people. And we're working with partners like Baycrest and the Center for Aging and Brain Health Innovation to create theater-based programming that's helping to improve cognitive function, increasing mobility, and reducing isolation for seniors. It's things like improv classes and line memorization and voice for the aging voice and movement classes. They're all part of what is keeping our patrons in our community stronger. So we're excited to bring those programs further out into the community. And again, the Guild is a big part of building these programs. We did a bunch of pilots last year, and they were our guinea pigs, and they gave us lots of feedback, and they helped us build the classes in a way so that we can actually launch them later in the fall.
That sounds like so much fun. Valerie, do you want to highlight some co-creation projects?
I think of the folk festival as one big co-creation. We invite about 70 performing, bands to come and perform at our festival. But what is happening around that is layers and layers of co-creation. So I'll just get into a few of them. We have a campground that we run. We can run two campgrounds, and it has its own art installations created by those who are staying there. They have their own musical events that they are having at certain times of the day and night. We on site, a big part of our event is that it's multi-generational. So it's really not unusual for us to have grandparents and great-grandparents there with their great-grandchildren now, because that has become their family tradition, is to come to this event together and be there together. So in a way, when I think about regenerative tourism, like actually building it into a family tradition has been really successful for us. And so we have folks who travel from all around the world to come back to Winnipeg, or to meet their family in Winnipeg, or to meet their friends in Winnipeg, because this is an event that they know that they all love together. The other kinds of co-creation that we have a prairie outdoor exhibition. So although we're primarily a music event, we also have art installations on site in which artists come and animate our beautiful provincial park. Our volunteers are constantly co-creating with us. I'm going to give you an example. I had a crew last year. We have 160 different volunteer crews, and a crew decided that there was a particular shift on that crew that decided they were all going to wear tutus. And this was going to be their way of demarking themselves within our 2,600 volunteer crew. And this sort of sense of whimsy and play that people bring to this is what kind of, as we're 17 staff. We got 2,600 volunteers. They always outnumber us. They're creating we're creating the framework, and they and the performers, and more importantly, the audience, are the ones who are actually creating the event. And then finally, I'd say actually our sponsors often end up co-creating, insofar as we've had sponsors approach us and say, we want to try this animation on site, and we really carefully curate that so that those are animations that make sense and serve the folk festival mission. But boy, when they work, they really, really work. And I think it works well for those businesses and sponsors too, because they're demonstrating to the folk fest community that they get it. They get the values of the festival and what it's all about. So those are some examples I'd offer.
Proud Winnipeg Folk Festival volunteer, and it is the best community ever. Honestly, it's like what the Winnipeg Folk Festival has created for their volunteers is the highest benchmark of how to treat volunteers well and how to keep them coming back. You've created an incredible community, Valerie, truly.
Thank you.
Yeah, clearly, from both of your examples, no single organization is doing it alone. It is about community building and collaboration. Melissa, when it comes to contributing to a more resilient local ecosystem, how has Destination Canada helped inform some of this work?
Thank you. So, Destination Canada has been super vital for us in terms of sharing data. Before the toolkit even came out, we use it in our fundraising, our advocacy work. We regularly chat with staff, and we were really happy to host some folks from Destination Canada for one of their board meetings at the theater last summer. And at Shaw, we're part of what we like to call a Niagara supercluster, which really is talking about tourism organizations, wineries, restaurants, hotels, agritourism, which is a growing part of the local economy. Think like tulip farms that people want to go to and take lots of nice photos of, and sort of lots of other cultural attractions. And we all work together because cultural visitors who are coming to the Niagara region, and especially the kind of folks that come to Shaw, they are interested in everything. They are cultural omnivores. They want to go to plays. They want to go to wineries. They want to go pick tulips. They want to go to the museum. They're going shopping on the high street. They're staying in hotels. that kind of economic impact into the area is massive. The cultural tourists, for every dollar they spend at a cultural place like the Shaw, returns $7 back into the community. And so, Shaw has about a $3 million economic impact into the community, and about 2/3 of that just like wouldn't really exist without us, because our patrons are coming for us and then they are staying for other things rather than coming for other things and tacking us on. Um, and there's lots of numbers running around about how many people visit Nautil in a year, but the kind of common number is about 3 million people, and 300,000 come to the Shaw Festival. So our cultural tourists are staying longer and spending the most money because they are truly engaged with us and the community. And that supports the rest of the community. There's a lot of people who, there's only 19,000 people that live in Niagara-on-the-Lake. It's a very small place, but around 4,000 of those are members or patrons of the Shaw Festival. And a lot of them choose to live here because of the benefits of having a major cultural charity in their backyard brings to them: the wineries, the restaurants, the thriving downtown, the beautiful community that's created with people who love art and who are engaged in their community in that way. Creates a wonderful community.
Valerie, you've mentioned that the festival happens at Burrs Hill Provincial Park. How does the environment shape how people experience the festival? And how do you protect and sustain that environment as you attract more visitors?
Yeah, it's an obsession for us. It's a beautiful provincial park, and we're very aware that we really use it primarily for a week a year, and it needs to exist 51 other weeks of the year. So we're really careful to protect the natural elements of our site, and it factors any planning that we do. Any kind of installation that we're planning on putting in, we want to know that it's not going to have long-term negative impacts. Anything that we do, for example, we've planted hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of trees over our time there to help enhance shade, but are also careful about what we plant. The other thing is just our approach to sustainability. So one of the things I'm proudest about at the Folk Festival is we have won multiple awards for our sustainability approaches. That is everything from sustainable transportation to make sure that people have options for getting to the site other than a single-use car, that we have on-site bikes and bike access, and being careful about what we use on site. All of our food vendors have to use compostable materials. We don't sell bottled water, but we do have a lot of taps so that people can refill their own. We focus on local vendors wherever we can, because we know that those products are traveling a shorter distance, and it also helps us to continue to be part of the economic cycle of our region. And we have a really significant on-site environmental program, which includes education about recycling, waste management, compost. We do mass composting. And, many people have sort of said to us over time, the Folk Festival is the place that I want the rest of the world to be like the rest of the year. And so we get to experiment with things because we're short, because we have control over our site, and because we're 4 days, we get to experiment with big things in its sustainability. And that is why we are able to have such a good, strong partnership with a provincial park. It's unusual to be able to do an event of this scale in a provincial park. And then finally, we take a lot of feedback from our audience who has things to say to us about that, performers, volunteers, etc. And we're always working on it. That work is not done. There's a lot of work for us to do to make sure that we're helping the land not just kind of survive us, but also thrive with us there.
We're going to go to questions from the audience in a sec, but just a final wrap-up question. When visitors leave Winnipeg or Niagara-on-the-Lake, what do you hope stays with them about the experience, the place, and your festivals overall? And to Johanna more broadly, in any of the communities that you're working with. So to jump in first.
Who do you want to start?
I'll go first.
Oh, yeah, Melissa.
Oh,
go ahead.
I'll jump to it.
Yep.
I want people to leave thinking this was a unique experience that I can't get anywhere else. This is a singular experience, and I've found my people, and I found some new music. So those are the things I want them to leave thinking.
Beautiful. And Melissa?
At Shaw, we recently launched the All Together Now campaign, which is our campaign for real human connection. And through this campaign, we're creating new spaces and expanding our programming, which I've talked about, that will hopefully allow everyone who visits us to rediscover their creativity and awaken their inner artist. And so that connection with others and the joy that comes from experiencing live performance with other people is really what I hope stays with people after they visit Niagara Lake.
Mm-hmm. And Johanna, for all the communities that you work with, more broadly?
Certainly. So at Destination Canada, we truly believe that tourism is a force for good, and that we want our guests to leave feeling more enriched, more connected, and more open. So for us, success looks like a visitor economy that helps our local businesses prosper, creates inclusive jobs, strengthens the cultural fabric of communities, as well as the well-being in communities, but also improves our guests and that they feel more enriched for having visited. So really making sure that impact is harmonious between our visitor economy and our local economy and quite seamless.
Nice. Okay, we're going to dive into our questions from the audience. We have a lot. I'm not sure we're going to get to all of them, but first of all, we have a question from the Jack Milliken Center, which is an arts, culture, and ecology facility in the boreal forest of Saskatchewan. So it's a rural site. So more generally, they're wondering if you can speak about attracting new people to small, remote communities and how to overcome that added cost of travel and accommodation. Yeah. Johanna, do you have any thoughts?
Certainly.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, going back to the regenerative approach and our destination development toolkit, you'll find some tips and tricks in there in regards to finding partners that align with your values and your objectives, opportunities to collaborate for mutual benefit. So seeking out those partners that are transportation minded. I think you can also leverage the data and information within our consumer segmentation and have that conversation with the digital traveler twin to say, how can I encourage you to come to my community? What kind of amenities are you looking for? How can I package with other accommodations and experiences to make it a demand generator? Melissa mentioned the festival is what draws people to Niagara on the Lake, and then there's ancillary spend throughout the community. How do you bring all of those businesses and experiences together to meet that consumer that you're targeting? And you can have that plain language conversation on the data collected with our traveler twin, and it will give you that plain language information to address those questions specific to your community.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the heart of all the things we've been talking about is relationships and continuing to build those relationships. Niagara on the Lake is a very rural place. We are surrounded by farms. Wineries are farms. People don't think about it that way, but they really are. And I have a PO box. I don't have a street address. So getting here is really difficult. And we saw a real drop in GTA attendance last year, partly because of a lot of road work that was happening on the QEW, which is kind of the only way to get here. And also the perceived idea that it's hard to get here, even though sometimes it's not. So, I mean, we're excited about, there's a hover boat that is getting closer to being a real thing, which has, been taunting people in Niagara Lake for a long time. But the idea of getting to Toronto in under half an hour is really exciting. So there's that. We're in active conversations with those folks and figuring out how to move people from one place to another. Air Canada just launched a new shuttle service from the Niagara Airport to Pearson. That's a game changer for us because our little airport doesn't take national or international travel. It's regional only. And so that is a big deal for us. Increased GO service is massive for us. We've been able to expand our Shaw bus service this year thanks to a very generous donor that's enabling us to do more bus work. I know Stratford has done really good work in busing patrons in and out for the day, and it's just really expensive. So transportation is a huge part of it, and working with partners is a great way to do it. So, yeah, just keep those lines of relationship open. Look for opportunities.
Well, continuing on that idea of relationships, we have a question asking the panelists to talk more about how their organizations connected with those local tourism organizations. So how do you start that relationship? So maybe Johanna, from Destination Canada's perspective, how do you want people to form those relationships?
So I'd say take a look in your community and understand who's working in the tourism space. If you can't find anybody in your local community or at the regional level, we can connect you with our provincial tourism partners that can introduce you to local players in the tourism landscape in your community. Quite often it's, done off the side of someone's desk at a municipality or, stored through the Chamber of Commerce. Larger destinations will have a tourism board or tourism marketing organization. Those are really great places to start.
Mm-hmm.
I joined the board of the Chamber of Commerce when I got here, which was a huge help for me personally to get to know some of the players in the area. And we host a tourism night every year. We invite our local tourism partners to come and join us at the beginning of the season, and we host them. And it's a way for us to say thank you to the people that help support our organization and also bring people in. But it's also a way for us to engage more deeply with some of those folks. So,
yeah. That's a great suggestion. Join Chamber of Commerce, join business improvement areas, etc. Follow-up question from someone commenting that they have tried to build relationships, but the new tourism brand package represented from their local destination organization is very heavily tilted towards sports and adventure outdoor stuff. So how do you get them to consider the arts and culture portfolio as being as important? Valerie.
So yeah, hear you. Hear you on that. And I think Winnipeg as is unusual in that we have large institutions here. You would not necessarily expect a city of our size to have an opera, a ballet, a major theater, a major event like ours, et cetera, et cetera. And so many of us, the Winnipeg Art Gallery, which is a large institution, have been working on tourism inadvertently on our own. But we have been recently, there's actually a coalition here to work with Tourism Manitoba on an arts and culture working group to sort of say, how can we be using data to support tourism? How can we be working together and help Tourism Manitoba and EDW Winnipeg? Sorry, I'm forgetting what that stands for.
Economic development.
Economic Development Winnipeg, which also has a tourism element, to better understand how they can support us as well, because we are such drivers. We know that we're a part of why people move to Winnipeg, or when they come in are transferred here from somewhere else, they stay, is because they're really struck by the amount of culture here. So I would say sometimes you have to make noise about it.
Well,
one of the big reasons I moved to Winnipeg was because of the arts and culture community. And at the time I was an artist, and the ability to live in the city and be an artist was profound for me.
And if you're looking for data that makes your case, I would recommend people take a look at our artwork report, which we released in the fall. And someone's question references it. So we have a question from someone in, obviously, Nova Scotia, because they're asking about financial support from your provinces, and noting that recently, of course, Nova Scotia's provincial budget slashed funding for arts and culture and tourism, which included closing 12 museums and tourism information centers. So that is obviously a huge challenge for the sectors to work together and to do what they need to do. So any thoughts, Valerie or Melissa or Johanna, about how folks in Nova Scotia should proceed, maybe?
Firstly, I'm so sorry. It's terrible. It's really hard. I mean, I think part of we have the benefit in Niagara right now that the province of Ontario is really interested in tourism, and they're really interested in tourism in the Niagara region. And so we are seizing that opportunity, and we have seized that opportunity. And so we have had a great amount of support from the province of Ontario, and we're deeply grateful for it. The case for the economic benefit speaks very strongly to government. So depending on what kind of government you have, this focus on the job growth, the benefits to the community, all of that data that Destination Canada can provide, reframing the argument to one not of, sadly, the social benefits, the community benefits, but of the economic benefits to the community can speak the language that they're used to speaking and can help them say yes. I don't know if that's going to happen in your community because of all the things that are happening there, but I think that's the key to good advocacy.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's obviously regional aspects to this. Manitoba has a history of, I'm not saying we're rolling in cultural dollars, but there is consistent and ongoing support for the cultural sector here in Manitoba. I do think I have worked in funding and that for decision makers in terms of large budget allocations towards culture, because it's not about our individual arts councils, it's not about, they only have whatever budget they have. The most successful arguments that I was a part of was showing them what was happening in other regions, and that a bit of comparison of look at what is happening elsewhere and how much economic benefit they're getting, what community development impacts are they, what are some of the offshoots that they're seeing. And if you find a community that is similar enough to you, it's a more compelling argument. For example, we don't, I'm not going to compare us to Toronto. It's not a useful comparison. It's very useful for us to compare to other mid-sized Canadian cities that are geographically landbound. So that's my suggestion, and I feel for you.
It's a great suggestion to find comparable case studies, essentially. Yeah. Johanna, do you have any thoughts?
Sure. So within tourism, we often face similar challenges where tourism is not a sector of choice or a prioritized sector across governments. And what we're trying to do is, rather than elbow our way in, is to speak to government about how we align and can help them achieve their objectives. So similar to what Melissa and Valerie have mentioned, how do we help them achieve the outcomes that they're looking for? How do we fit into their mandate and their strategy rather than trying to attract their attention to our call?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a very good point.
And just keep working those relationships and building those relationships. I mean, I know we keep saying it, but it's true. You have to engage.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. One final question from the audience. One of you had mentioned working in interesting ways with sponsors, and wondering if you could expand a little bit more on that, give us some inspiration and innovative ideas to go forth with.
Sure, I think that was my comment.
Mm-hmm.
So just to give you a sense of a few kind of obvious, sponsors support the festival in various ways, but when I think about specific animations that have happened on site that I feel like support the goals of the festival and also support our audience and therefore support our sponsors, I think of things like we had our tavern is mostly Manitoba products, I'm proud to say, and Little Brown Jug, which was the corporate sponsor of the tavern and supplies the beer there, decided to kind of go back into the history of the festival when we used to, in the old days, have message boards where people could leave messages for each other before cell phones. I'll meet you at such and such stage at such and such time. And so last year for our 50th, they put up a gigantic blackboard where people could leave messages for each other. And, it was whimsical. It was beautiful. It aesthetically fit with the rest of our festival. It sort of provided a service, but it also really honored the event, in terms of what is the what are the memories that people have? They were helping us celebrate our 50th. I thought that was a really fun one. Another way is a corporate sponsor wanted to do a giveaway. We were really careful about what that giveaway was. As I mentioned earlier, sustainability is really important to us, so we do not want to contribute to garbage. But they decided to give away branded blankets because a lot of people sit on blankets on our site, and I thought that was good. And then the final example I'll give is this year, we're really focusing on animations that meet a gap that we have. So we're always looking for partnerships in providing shade and seating. And so finding sponsors who are interested in participating in that, because we need more shade and we need more seating. We don't need add-on stuff. We need folks who want sponsors who want to partner with us, and they like being a part of that. I find sponsors like that sense of being an integral part of the delivery of the event, not just a stuck-on piece. Hope that helps.
That is really good. So basically asking them to help problem solve with you instead of really add on. Yeah. Fantastic. Well, that is all the time we have for today. A big thank you to our speakers, Johanna Griggs, Melissa Novecosky, and Valerie Shantz for their insight and answering all the questions from our audience. Thank you to our ASL interpreter, Jenny Stevens. Many thanks to Power Corporation of Canada, presenting partner of the Business and Arts Speaker Series. And we'd also like to thank our supporting partner, RBC. If you want to learn more about any business and arts programs and events, including our Artworks report or the Arts Vibrancy Index, please visit our website, businessandarts.org, for more information, or follow us on social media. And wishing everyone a happy World Theatre Day tomorrow. So many thanks and have a great rest of your day.